In every country, the National Red Cross or Red Crescent Society works energetically to build the long-term capacities of communities. This process involves communities identifying their needs, volunteers offering their time, staff coordinating resources, and domestic and international partners providing support where necessary. Ultimately, it helps the vulnerable better manage their lives, reduce the risks they face, and improve their long-term health, well-being, and livelihoods. This video is one of 5 documentaries created to illustrate best practices in building community and Red Cross and Red Crescent capacities in a variety of cultural contexts from Mongolia, Australia, Nepal, and Cambodia. One of the main purposes of the Red Cross and Red Crescent societies is to mobilize as many diverse people at community level as possible to improve the lives of the vulnerable. The purpose of this is to ensure equality and equal rights for all people, with equal voices and space for diverse groups in the community to share ideas and benefit from all services. Both women and men should enjoy equal representation and should equally influence the organization's work so it does not consciously or unconsciously discriminate against women or men benefiting from it. In developing services and programs, it is crucial that national societies listen to and involve all groups of people. Special efforts should be made to include all those who are usually marginalized, socially excluded, and discriminated against in society to make sure their needs and ideas are also fully addressed both as communities but also as members and volunteers. In summary, all Red Cross Red Crescent movement work aims to influence behavior in society to promote tolerance and respect for diversity and promote gender issues in terms of the equal rights of men and women. In taking up difficult issues in society, it also aims to challenge discrimination, abuse and exploitation, and social exclusion in any form. All these issues are interconnected, which is why the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement put these principles and values at the heart of all its work. We start in Mongolia, where the Red Cross has many activities to try and make sure the voices of some groups who would not usually be heard are included in planning and activities of branches. Here, diversity often means finding and including people that others have left out. In Orkhon province, the branch's 21-member Volunteer Council for the Elderly is an excellent example of making sure the needs of the elderly are not forgotten. 2 members of the council show how it has improved the voice and lives of elderly people in the community.
Our Elderly Council was established 9 years ago, and I have been a member of this board for 6 years. The board organizes a weekly meeting to discuss projects that have been completed and our future work. We also work in close collaboration with elder councils of various other organizations and foundations. Wherever we go, elderly people ask us about the Elder Board. I think this shows that the public has started to accept us, and it makes us confident in our job and fills us with energy. I'm in charge of the arts program, and having Buryat roots, I'm currently working to teach and promote Buryat culture and traditions to young people. I really enjoy working there, as it gives me the opportunity to develop myself and to teach others what I have learned. I think the right outlook on life is not to put yourself back thinking you are old, but instead to push yourself forward. With this outlook, you will live longer.
The social care program deliberately focuses on assisting specific target groups who represent the most forgotten and socially marginalized members of the community. This beneficiary, Bayar Bata, became paralyzed from the waist down after an accident in June 2003 when he fell from a high building.
Since my accident, I lost 80% of my physical movement and have been subjected to a wheelchair. And now I require constant care from others. Before Red Cross volunteers came to my assistance, it was quite difficult and lonely for me. I had to pass the day all by myself while my wife and 2 children had gone to work and school. People should have motivation in life. The local district authority and the Red Cross provide support for my handicraft work. The income from selling my handiwork contributes towards purchasing medicines. I'm able to make my own money to buy bread and groceries, and as such, my living condition has improved significantly.
The Mongolian Red Cross National Social Care Coordinator explains how targeting women-headed households brings wider benefits to the family and community.
The reason that we are focusing on this group is because they represent a majority of families living in Mongolia today. Women-headed households also have many children. The reason why we provide life skills training to single mothers is because they themselves are responsible for their children's school tuition and other payments. Through our social care program, we assist them to generate new sources of income.
One of the causes of social isolation is the migration of families due to economic pressures or disasters. They end up in the cities completely unaware of how to access their legal rights.
Many people relocating from the countryside lack basic information about filing their registration and apply to the Red Cross for assistance, which is one of the services we provide under the social care program.
Mrs. Korlu is a 67-year-old grandmother with 4 orphan grandchildren.
For many years, I could not get a pension and other welfare benefits for almost 10 years. With the kind assistance of Red Cross volunteers, I managed to receive my pension as well as welfare payments for my grandchildren. They helped us to compile the documentation needed to obtain all the relevant benefits provided by the state. I receive 80,000 tugriks as a pension and spend it for food, clothing and stationery. It's not enough for everything, but we manage it. I am so happy in my current life. Before this, my life was very hard.
As in many other countries, the voices and equal rights of women are not always recognized as important. In Nepal, involvement with Red Cross programs has helped and improved the lives of Nepalese women, especially with the many challenges faced by them in the community, which limited their participation in discussions and decisions affecting them.
The women of our village are not as suppressed as in the past by men. They are independent. They are allowed to participate in seminars and other programs and can express their opinions in such programs. I was not able to go to the health post for a checkup on my own. I used to feel shy and frightened. Now I can go on my own and get the checkup done. Now we say there should be no discrimination between men and women. After the Red Cross came, we have got awareness that both men and women have equal rights.
Dignity, respect, and empowerment are key issues in local communities. District Branch President Drona Guragan describes how the branch works on restoring these to Nepalese women, giving examples of the improved representation of women at volunteer, member, and committee level.
We had to start by nominating female volunteers. They realized on their own that they had to have representation at branch and sub-branch levels. That was the success of our philosophy. Once they realized that we were an equal opportunity community and everyone gets an equal turn at things, our female membership shot up from almost none to about 350 lifetime members. Women have contested elections on their own. They are in the top 5% of the management committee. That gives us a lot of satisfaction. When we began, the number of volunteers at the district level was only 212. Now our fame is well known because we showed that we could achieve and get things done in difficult situations.
Recognizing the need to strengthen women's participation in Nepal Red Cross overall, the Women's Development Unit began in 1997 with founder Mrs. Bala Shrestha, who was determined to increase the participation of women in the national society.
When we saw that the average membership was less than 12%, our first task was to carry out a membership drive. We started the drive. We chose quantity instead of quality because we needed female members at every level. We had to think about how we could get female members in the central executive when there were no members at district level. Female participation was negligible in other fields as well. We organized regional workshops on gender sensitization in 5 districts. On the basis of that, we organized income generation, gender sensitization, membership drives, and leadership drive programs at the district level. The district branch level volunteers helped me in these drives. A new women's committee was formed, on that basis at the headquarter level. Based on that committee, new committees were formed at the district and sub-district level. Once the committees were formed, they had to figure out their subsequent tasks. We provided them funds for income generation drives and workshops. Many women were encouraged by these activities, and they joined us in our efforts.
The current Women's Development Unit head, Mrs. Tara Bhattarai, describes how Nepal Red Cross achieved 3 big successes at the community, branch and national level.
In national level, we are doing a lot of training, national level, regional level and district level, gender awareness and women participation in Red Cross. So that means in each district now 2 or 3 gender resource person has been increased. Now the district can conduct the gender training by themselves. So it is also a big achievement. They said that no, we all are equal, not the man is not a superior. We also are the same level. So they has been empowered. So I think no, the women membership has been increased by 75%.
Mrs. Sarala Kayeshta, chair of the National Women's Development Committee, explains the importance of national-level discussions as well as the practical support it can organize at local levels.
In some places, women have had a lot of problems educating their daughters. We made arrangements for scholarships from the Women's Development Committee in places where there were such problems. Currently, we have programs for women victimized by conflict. In our country, we have had conflict and unrest. Women have been raped, assaulted, and also suffered from domestic violence. Recently, women in Saptari and Sunsari suffered a lot due to the Koshi floods. Other women were also affected, particularly pregnant women who face the toughest time. The Women's Development Committee supported them as necessary by providing nutritious food and by taking them to the hospital when they were about to deliver. Even after delivery, we looked after them for about a month in a separate place before sending them home.
Like in many countries, it is a sad fact that other forms of discrimination also exist, and this leads to social exclusion of certain groups within their communities. After attending a Nepal Red Cross workshop on discrimination, 22-year-old Asis Rai describes its effect on his daily life, his attitudes, and his behavior towards people.
As I came back from the youth camp, I convinced my family about the gender-based discrimination prevalent in my house and reduced such discrimination. And even in the society, our group has been mobilizing youth to raise awareness and reduce discriminations based on religion, gender, and caste in the society. We have been running classes about caste-based discrimination in every ward and mobilizing the youth force to make a discrimination-free society.
Daveman Rai, head of the Ale Red Cross sub-branch, outlines the activities his branch has prioritized to break down discrimination, violence, and social exclusion in the lives of communities.
We have formed committees of various kinds in all 9 wards of the Village Development Committee. In those committees, we have representation from all underprivileged communities and castes. The sub-branch has played a decisive role in encouraging their voices to be heard. This trend has helped eliminate caste discrimination to a great extent. When people from various communities come together and started working, eating, and living together, their relationship improved. In the past, when a woman from a lower caste came to a tap to fetch water, she was told to wait until the woman from the upper caste filled their pots. That practice has come to an end. Now anybody can come to fill her pot at any time. This is one big cultural change that has been brought about here.
Other practical activities have also been prioritized to eliminate social exclusion, discrimination, domestic violence on women, and to increase social inclusion.
To encourage women and people from the lower castes, we have run women's legal literacy classes with the help of the Bar Association and were able to get many participants. Various kinds of violence on women like physical, psychological and domestic still exists, so we run seminars at the high school level. During these seminars, we provide classes on women's rights.
Red Cross programs on women's development and youth workshops have had their impact on discrimination and violence. Secretary-General of Nepal Red Cross, Mr. Dave Ratna Dakwa, expands on some strategies that have led to this.
Let me start from the youth. Youth is the real big component of Nepal Red Cross activities because nearly more than 50% of the membership is youth. So out of 1 million persons, more than 500,000 people are youth. So they are organized in many different settings, and they are not only organizing for themselves and training for the leadership for the future, but they are really taking care of different other development activities as well. And then they are the real force for fighting the discrimination and the social changes. And whatever new changes have to be brought out in the society, they are the real energetic people, and they have different programs. So that's why it has a very big impact in the organization as a whole. Actually, the impact I want to count on, not on the high society only, but on the community structures. One very good example is Nepal Red Cross is the pioneer in starting the mothers group in Nepal. So those mothers group are really very revolutionary nowadays, and they have transformed the society, including fighting the domestic violence and fighting against the alcoholic drinks, changing in the patterns of their husbands' behavior to the wives. So those types of things are also coming up. These are the real revolutionary features that has emanated from the Red Cross Women's Group activities.
Many Cambodians have experienced social isolation, exclusion, or discrimination in different forms as victims of the AIDS virus, war, or sexual assault. Their involvement in Cambodian Red Cross organized programs has helped them to achieve a more respected position in their community. The Red Cross approach is to empower such people as volunteers to achieve new and appreciated roles in their communities. Sa Sinath is a person living with HIV/AIDS, Red Cross volunteer, and HIV/AIDS counsellor.
In the past, I was a patient in Chong Kriel village. I was bitterly discriminated against by community members. Later, I was visited by Cambodia Red Cross volunteers. They talked to me. They motivated me to access treatment in the local hospital to continue my survival like others. Now I'm responsible for taking care of patients in this commune, such as children living with HIV/AIDS, as well as victims of disasters. Now the situation is getting better, and community members are quite happy to have me as a person living with HIV/AIDS. I'm able to help other people living with HIV/AIDS, especially new ones who dare not show their identities. They share their experience from the community with one another. They are happy when they meet with each other. They thought they were alone, but actually there are many others.
The rape of their 4-year-old by teenagers in their neighborhood led one family to move away from home. As a place that provides comfort, the Cambodian Red Cross provided medical, legal, and financial support, as well as extensive counseling for their daughter. But it was still difficult to remain in the same community. Her mother explains why.
Villagers do not openly discriminate against me, but I don't know if they do so behind me. In front of me, they say something good, but I don't know what they say behind me. They sympathize with my daughter. They do not hate her. In the past, I was very demotivated, but with the help of the Red Cross, I was motivated again. But I am struggling. So thank you, Red Cross, for helping my daughter.
Many volunteers conduct activities to help marginalized groups have a stronger voice in their communities. These are a couple of examples of support given to people who were discriminated against after contracting HIV.
When they have problems, I bring them to our peer support center. Then I bring them to access services, such as blood tests. If the test is positive, I can take them to get antiretroviral drugs. We also organize a half-day training session on discrimination and HIV/AIDS to allow community members to understand HIV/AIDS. These activities are of great benefit to them. For example, Mrs. Sraipov did not accept our services in the past. Then after a pregnancy check, she realized that she was HIV positive, but she still refused to accept our services. So, as a volunteer, I visited her and kept talking to her until she was comfortable. Now she has got to know me and understands very well how I can help her. As you can see, both of them, she and her husband, are still good looking. They are here today participating and come to all our Red Cross activities.
Mrs. Sampuan especially, she is the one who always hides her identity. I explained and encouraged her to participate in the community as other people do, with other people living with HIV/AIDS. I always told her not to hide herself, and I asked her to attend monthly meetings with other people. I told her that hiding her identity would make her even more stressed. Now she joins us at every meeting. She never did that in the past. This is an example about educating the toughest person I've ever met in my village and commune.
Kong Bore, a Red Cross volunteer from the Kampong Truck sub-branch, expands on the different types of economic training and activities implemented to help marginalized groups re-establish their place in their communities.
As volunteers, we visit people living with HIV/AIDS and children who are victimized in the community. In this village, people were facing livelihood problems, so they requested Cambodian Red Cross to help them in terms of capital funds so they could start their business, to earn a living and to send their children to school. They weave baskets for sale to generate income for their livelihood. In the past, they were very poor. They could not earn any money.
Like in many other countries, human trafficking in Cambodia is a significant problem affecting many people. Since 2006, the Red Cross has undertaken activities to help change policies and practices of organizations to improve respect and the rights of marginalized groups and individuals. A special focus has also developed to support those affected by social isolation as a result of human trafficking and to advocate for their rights. Cambodian Red Cross Secretary General, Madam Pum Chantini, talks about what the Red Cross is doing as an auxiliary to the government to address the issue.
Talking about advocacy, we have invited all the relevant institutions of the government and our staff at the provincial level, all the 24 branches, to come and organize a workshop about human trafficking. And the workshop have found, first is to raise awareness about human trafficking. Second, I can say that helping the victims to reintegrate in their community. And finally, the workshop agreed that to raise about the plan of action to our project so-called response to human trafficking.
Madam Pum Chantani touches on some practical steps that the Cambodian Red Cross has so far introduced to help victims of violence and human trafficking.
And we also provide the psychological support to them. We also provide the need to reintegrate in the community, not just to, okay, go back to the home country. And some villagers around the victim might not understand about how painful it is.
In Australia, the Red Cross has recently increased its attention on the needs of special groups who have been marginalised socially, economically and culturally. Community Services Manager, Kay McLennan, talks about new ways of consulting Indigenous communities on their needs.
This is an example of a cooking program called Food Sense, which builds in a holistic approach to healthy lifestyle. And originally we were going to hold this program inside. And community people, even though we'd consulted with them, they said, oh yes, that would be wonderful. Well, no one turned up. So, next week, no one turned up. So we thought, right, if people won't come to the centres because they don't feel comfortable, we'll go out there. And from that, this whole program has evolved. There was already a little creche-type activity happening with 2 other agencies.
Strengthening diversity is being included into everything the Red Cross does in Australia, as Domestic Operations Manager Noel Clement explains.
It's so critical that Australian Red Cross is reflective of the broader Australian society. That includes engaging people that we're providing services with, engaging them directly in their own communities. It means getting people in as employees, as volunteers. We've been doing that progressively through fairly targeted employment programs, so looking at particularly trying to get more Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the organisation, more people from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds, a whole range of groups. And really engaging people in the organisation, making our own organisation accessible as well, so making sure that we're not an organisation that excludes people by employment practices or other things, that might be, not necessarily deliberate, but really having a look at our employment practices and how we work.
Chief Executive Officer Robert Tickner outlines the 3 most important steps Australia Red Cross will take to improve its approach to diversity.
Well, I think in our case, in Australia, our increasing commitment to form partnerships with Indigenous people, to ensure that we have many more Aboriginal people in our own ranks of volunteers and staff and in our governance structure. Secondly, to reach out to the many diverse ethnic and cultural groupings that make up a multicultural Australia. And thirdly, to have a broader diversity policy, to make sure that our ranks of governance, our staff and our volunteers truly represent the wide cross-section of people that make up our community. And I think there are important lessons in that for national societies around the world. We need to be, and not just say the words, we need to be the organisation that does truly mobilise the power of humanity. And to do that, we need to make sure that the wide spectrum of the community is reflected in our ranks. That's putting life into the meaning of the word diversity.
The work of Red Cross and Red Crescent members everywhere is to find the most vulnerable and assist them to become integrated members of their own community, to enjoy a life with dignity, respect, and with an equal chance to benefit from services and livelihoods. The movement's 7 fundamental principles are the guide to establish lives for all people that are free from social isolation, discrimination, and violence.